Welcome back. All right, you saw it all day, wild day on Wall Street, right, with the tariffs. The Dow shot out of a cannon this morning, ended up closing quite a bit down. Congressman Byron Donalds is on the House Finance Committee and joins us now. All right, so we're going to start with tariffs. It was a very interesting day. What did you make of it? Obviously, the idea that this 104% tariff on China goes into effect here in a matter of hours must have had a bit to do with what happened in the afternoon.
Look, I think so. But look, here's where we are. The president is doing what he campaigned on, which was making sure that the future economy, the future global economy, is more fair and there's an even playing field for America, for American businesses, and for American workers. And so we're on the way to do that. Of course, in this interim, there's going to be fits and starts, obviously, in the markets. But President Trump is going to get this done. And I think we're all really on the way to there now. As I understand it, many countries, are already contacting the president and his team to try to find a way to negotiate what the future of trade is going to look like for America and really for the world.
What do you say to there's detractors within your own party, and Rand Paul was on CNBC this morning. We talked about this earlier in the show. But, you know, he had a lot to say, and he made some pretty good arguments on the show for free trade. You know, he talked about how, you know, trade is always a mutually beneficial, you know, one side pays another for something that they want and the other side produces it. He sees just free trade as enough, and he doesn't see a need to be pushing for fair trade, and he has some very deep concerns about where this is going. This is a guy that broadly supports the president's policies. How do you respond to that?
I understand Rand's concern. My viewpoint is when you have other countries who know that they are at a major advantage or even an advantage period compared to the United States, that's not good enough anymore. I made this analogy when I had a meeting with several folks earlier today, is that, you know, when my kids were much younger, I could wrestle all three of them and it wasn't any big deal. Well, now my kids are 21, 17, and 13. You know, I can't wrestle all three of them at the same time. I got to really think about how I'm going to deal with just one of them. Yeah. And so it's the same thing with the American economy. When we were the dominant economy and every other economy was building themselves up off of the back of the American economy, it didn't matter what the trade policies were. It was fine if they had tariff policies and protections, if they had companies that were actually cheating when it came to trade enforcement, or that for a long time the United States didn't even bother enforcing the trade restrictions that we had put in place. That's the facts. So if you want to go to free trade, which I want to do, you have to have a new playing field where countries are on the same level playing field as we are in the United States. Yeah. Once you get there, then you can have free trade again.
Yeah. I guess we just wait and see what happens tomorrow. I mean, this changes so fast. It changes by the hour, it seems. I want to talk about tax cuts here for a minute. The Senate has passed a version. Wall Street Journal says Republicans are fractured on Trump's tax bill. Some members have budgetary concerns. Where is this at this point? Where are we at?
So real quick, there isn't disagreement on Capitol Hill when it comes to tax policy. The disagreement is how much money are we cutting in mandatory spending? And to be blunt, there are members on Capitol Hill who don't trust members of the Senate and frankly don't trust members of leadership in order to deliver on a lot of the promises that have been made over the years up here on Capitol Hill. Tax policy, we're going to get that done. But the real thing that's happening is not a trade of more spending cuts to deliver President Trump's tax policy agenda. That's actually not the case. We're going to pass the tax policy agenda. It's about bending the cost curve in mandatory spending. We are spending far too much money. Our borrowing rates are explosive here. That's going to crowd out private investment. It's going to crowd out individuals looking for their own loans, whether it's a house or a car, whatever the case might be. So the federal government has to control itself. As long as we cut spending, we'll have a deal and it'll be done pretty quickly.
Real quick, just want to show you ran into you're running for governor, state of Florida. You ran into some pretty heavy resistance. You had a moment here. Let's play it.
To rise up and support LGBTQ plus youth and stop this insane attack on our children who know who they are.
Number one,
no. Of course you're not, because you're a fascist. You're a trace. You're a race traitor and you are a fascist.
Got only 15 seconds left, but quite a moment though, huh?
Listen, I'm glad everybody gets to speak their mind, but what I heard at these protests made no sense at all, and they don't make sense to the people of Florida or the people of America. That's why Donald Trump won, and that's why we have a responsibility to deliver on his agenda.
Yeah, well said. All right, Congressman, good to see you. Thanks so much. Byron Donalds. You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmitt tonight on Newsmax.